Welcome to the Introduction to Competition Adjudication training presented by the DrillMaster. By the end of this block of instruction, you will understand who this training is for, the current system and the background of the World Drill Association adjudication system, the drill meet, the 4 adjudication captions, the what and the how, judging exhibition drill, using descriptors, judging regulation drill, assigning a number to a visual performance, using the judge's tote sheet, and the tabulation process. This training is for everyone who will judge a cadet competition. I highly recommend using the World Drill Association adjudication program that I developed several years ago. All around the world, junior ROTC units put together drill teams and color guards. Civil Air Patrol units have color guards and flag details, and other cadet and explorer programs have competition based on drill and ceremonies. These cadets and explorers put in hours every day for many months each year to create the perfect routines. Day after day they train, giving up much free time in their pursuit of excellence. When they go to a competition, who is there to judge? Someone who graduated basic training or boot camp. That's the only qualification to be a judge currently. A vast majority of judges have no idea what they are doing and rely only on their natural reactions of what impresses them to give a score. Some are instructors of basic training or boot camp, and while that gives the individual a bit more knowledge, it's still not the training required to adequately assign a score to a visual performance. Members of Honor Guard units are only taught ceremonial drill, and what they learn is only applied in very limited ways. All your military training is always appreciated, but even the training in drill and ceremonies we all received has a very narrow focus, and none of that training prepares us to judge adequately. This is why there is little growth for most competitive teams. There are many people who can fill the position of being a judge: military, first responders, veterans, and senior ROTC cadets. The World Drill Association adjudication program can be used for any drill and ceremonies competition. The following is a brief overview of a drill meet. You bring a certain level of experience and skill. Bias means your certain tendency or even opinion about something. It's the preconceived ideas that you have based on your training and experiences. Your expectations should be that of the cadets following standards and achieving some level of excellence. Your purpose in judging the competition is to assign a score against a written standard, not the standard of your bias. You liking or disliking anything in a performance is irrelevant. Base your score on the written standard. Make sure you are prepared. It could be a long day. You must have a very good working knowledge of at least your service drill and ceremonies manual, and it would be a very good idea to read everything noted here. Have the manuals with you at the competition, at least in electronic format, if not printed out. There are 2 categories of a drill meet and several phases. The phases usually begin with a detailed inspection, and the platoon or flight moving to the regulation drill phase, where the commander takes the team through a predetermined sequence of commands. The team usually moves on to the exhibition drill phase, where the ingenuity of the members in designing a routine that is outside of any military manual is put to the test. The team can then be broken down into a competitive squad for regulation and exhibition performances, and then the color guard phase, which is another section of regulation drill where the team goes through another sequence of predetermined commands. Many drill meets also offer armed and unarmed solo and tandem competitions. While armed and unarmed dictate whether the platoon and squad are actually carrying rifles, the unarmed color guard category is purely a category for the majority of drill meets, with the guards carrying rifles in both categories. That means a school can enter a color guard in each category and both be armed. There are very few drill meets that have a truly unarmed color guard category for competition where the guards do not carry rifles. For most drill meets, everyone competes at the same level, which at first can seem fair, but it leads to intimidation and limits performances by schools that are brand new to competitive marching, underdeveloped, or restarting after a hiatus. Challenge and Masters levels work well but have limitations. The better approach is the World Drill Association's class divisions of Novice, Junior, A, Open, and World. You can see that each class concentrates on skill levels. Not all classes have to be used, but you have these options. Each class means additional awards. Each class comes with the same score sheets, with World class being a bit different. The explanations of the standards on the reverse of each sheet in each class is different and matches the skill level of that class. This is a sample of possible awards. Traditionally, a drill meet hands out trophies or award plaques. I highly suggest award streamers. Streamers are much less expensive and don't require a large amount of space to display. They can be attached to the guidon staff or a special unit organizational flag, which is in keeping with military tradition. Again, using different WDA classes would mean more awards. Let's have a look at the current judging system. There is no system. Before I explain that, I need to address 2 points. First, I realize that the contents of this briefing might have some pushback as I ruffle some feathers. I mean no offense in any way. I also understand that just about everyone is used to showing up the morning of a drill meet and just getting on with the judging without anything more than a briefing as to where the drill areas are and to pick up your clipboards over there. All I ask is that you please be open to understanding the information presented here. The second and last point I need to explain is that some may feel that just because I have developed this judging system, I am saying it's better than anything else. That's not the case. It's true that I have designed this system and written every word. I've accomplished this alone with guidance from the adjudication training in the pageantry arts I have received over many, many years, with Drum Corps United Kingdom, Drum Corps Holland, Color Guard Netherlands under the guidance of Winter Guard International, and the Pacific Coast Judges Association. I am a certified visual judge, and my training is extensive for judging marching bands, drum and bugle corps, indoor winter guards, and percussion ensembles. I've taken that training and put it through the military drill filter to create this system. I've judged military drill teams since the early 1990s and have always strived to enhance this system to the best of my abilities. Now, on with the rest of the particulars here. While an attempt has been made over the decades to have some sort of standard across the country and for schools overseas, the results have been in score sheets alone and not a judging system. These score sheets force the judge to constantly look at the sheet and take his or her concentration off the performance. On this slide is an example of a score sheet for an unarmed regulation drill sequence. Obviously, exhibition drill sheets will not have a list of commands to follow, but they don't help the judge look at the performance objectively. Here is a sample score sheet that most judges are given. This is one of the problems of the current sheets. Everyone looks at the same score sheet at the same time. All judges must assign a score for each individual move, and that requires them to constantly look down, resulting in the judge missing a majority of the performance. Judges should be looking at the same routine from different perspectives, with only one judge keeping track of the sequence of commands, the timing and penalties judge. Now we will go over the World Drill Association adjudication system, captions and subcaptions. There are 4 adjudication captions. A caption is a rubric with criteria for assessing a grade or score, and we use these rubrics to assign a number to a visual performance with a slight natural overlap between captions. This setup requires 5 judges per drill area. This is ideal and gives the judges the ability to concentrate solely on their individual caption. Under each numbered caption are the subcaptions. The one on the top is the what of the performance, and the one on the bottom is the how of the performance. The timing and penalties judge position is not a caption, but is just as essential as the other judges. Having 5 judges per phase is not always feasible. Here is a setup that may better suit most drill meets. Merged captions might require less manpower, but it requires the judge to track more. What I have done for the merged captions is put the score sheets together. 2 judges could pull off this system, but it would be extraordinarily demanding for both. Your purpose is simple: detect error and reward achievement. We focus much too much on error detection by thinking everyone begins with 100 points, and during the performance we look only for errors and subtract a point. When the performance is finished, you have done your job by subtraction. This concentrates on the negative only and cannot reward any level of achievement. We need to switch that around and start everyone at 0, with achievement being one of the goals. For this briefing, we will concentrate on open class. Your drill meet may want to expand to include other classes. We will look closer at each score sheet, beginning with overall effect. This image is the top of the score sheet. This section is the what of the performance. On the left, there are bullet points, and at the bottom is the scoring matrix. A bit later, I will explain the box system of scoring in detail. What you do is match the descriptors and learning steps listed across the scoring matrix that best describe the bullet points for the performance. For instance, we will look at the first few points and the descriptors. Production value, sound design, and concept. You might think this is solely talking about music. It's not. Even a silent drill team uses sound as an effect. Butt slams, slapping the rifle, foot stomps, even hand claps and slaps are part of sound design. Are the sounds consistent or random? If random or rare, then the team might not understand that aspect of performance design, and you may want to consider box 2 for the score. If consistent, maybe a higher box score is required. The second bullet point looks at the range of effects. Is the same effect used again and again? Are they varied? Let's skip down to continuity and flow of effects. Does the team march, stop, spin, or execute some other effect and then march, stop, and repeat the process? Or is the team continuously creating effect after effect while marching and standing still? Notice that you can award a score to the team, which includes the commander, and you can also give separate scores to the team commander and guidon-bearer. These 2 separate scores are only if the competition awards the commander and guidon-bearer separately. Either way, include the commander and guidon-bearer with the team score, and then provide a separate score for each. Now we move to the bottom of the sheet, the how. Here is where you get to react to the performance. You are part of the audience, and while liking or disliking is not necessarily part of the equation, you will still react in levels of appreciation for the effects in the routine. Again, take the descriptors and learning steps and apply them to the bullet points. At the bottom of the image, there are 5 more boxes that describe a sub-caption spread. This is the difference between the what and the how scores. I'll cover sub-caption spreads when we get to the judge's tote sheet. Now we come to the bottom of the score sheet where we have the judge's signature, the tabulation section, and the box for the tabulator's initials. After the judge fills in the judge's tote sheet, he or she transfers the scores onto the score sheet in the spaces provided in the what and how sections. The judge does not total the scores. That is what the people working in tabulation do. On the left of the tabulation section, there are 3 spaces for the overall effect score totals. Transfer the team score into the middle section where it says OE score. After the other score sheets are totaled, transfer those numbers to MV for movement, EQ for equipment, and CA for composition analysis. Add those scores up and write down the number in the subtotal space. Subtract any penalties assessed. Multiply that number by 2 and then divide by 10 to get a final score for that phase. We must define the standard, write it down, and judge from that standard, not base it on something arbitrary like our previous experience or training. The package you downloaded contains the score sheets with what is pictured here. This written standard can be printed on the back of the score sheets, or you can have one copy for each class you will judge for the day. Once you understand the explanation of the skill level for your caption, you can be more effective in assigning a score. I covered quite a bit of information for overall effect, and much of the same information applies to the other captions. It's just implemented in a different way. The following descriptions will be much shorter. Now we move to composition analysis. The composition you are analyzing is the team's exhibition routine. For the what, you are looking at the design of the exhibition routine. Just like with the overall effect explanation, you match the bullet points with the descriptors and learning steps. I will have a video that explains each caption following this video. The same principle applies here of matching the descriptors and learning steps that best match the performance to the bullet points. Here is the composition analysis score sheet reverse, the written standard. You can get an idea of what is expected for each box for the what and how of the performance. The reason that the scores are not a 50-50 split is because for many classes, the repertoire or vocabulary of movement and equipment can be limited, but the excellence of that limited vocabulary can be quite high. When working in world class, the sub-captions are 50-50 to reflect the requirement of the class that the team has a wide vocabulary and the excellence to go with it. As with overall effect and composition analysis, for movement and equipment, you use the box system and match the statements. A repertoire is an inventory or vocabulary of moves or positions, including the range of techniques used to perform them. The same principle applies here as with the previous score sheets. You are judging the level of excellence of the vocabulary presented. The reverse of the movement and equipment score sheets, the written standard, is the same for both. The timing and penalties judge is responsible for tracking timing, tempo, boundary, and other violations. If none, write that down. For regulation drill, the what is taken care of because the performances are based on pre-designed sets of commands. Here we look only at execution and the clarity of the team's communication to the audience. Not that regulation drill is any lesser of a phase in competition, it's just that since the sequence is already created, the what is not taken into account, just the how. You are judging execution within the service standard for the platoon, squad, and color guard. The World Drill Association has alternate regulation drill phases called open regulation drill that have a minimum required list of commands, but the cadets are required to create the most effective sequence from that list that covers the drill area and fills the required time limit as long as the minimums of each of the commands is met. For the merged overall effect and composition analysis sheet, you again match the bullets for the commander and team against the descriptors and learning steps. For this merged sheet, you will provide scores for the 2 captions, not just one score. We move to the right of the sheet and score the composition analysis portion. The regulation drill version of composition analysis is a bit limited, but is still applicable. Lastly, on the score sheet is the tabulation section. This time the tabulator moves from left to right instead of top to bottom. As with the merged overall effect and composition analysis score sheet, the judge will observe equipment and movement simultaneously and score separately. The timing and penalties judge is busy in each regulation drill phase and may want another judge to take a tempo sample at some point. The timing and penalties judge keeps track of the sequence of commands and then writes all violations down as observed by any of the judges. For clarification, a drop is losing complete control of a piece of equipment, and a hit is losing but regaining control. We can define equipment as a flagstaff, guide-on staff, rifle, or sword, and also include anything else that is manipulated in the hands of a driller, which might include a uniform cover. For our purposes, there is a difference between timing and tempo. Timing is the length of the performance, while tempo is the speed of marching. To take a tempo sample, the easy method is to open the metronome app on your phone and tap on the section where it says Tap Tempo. Tap about 6 or 8 times to get a close approximate, or you can count the number of steps for 10 seconds during the performance and multiply that number by 10 to get an approximate tempo. Using the metronome app will help you keep your eye on the performance. Timing needs to be sampled at least once in each regulation drill performance. Make marks on each space to keep track of the number of infractions. Add up each penalty individually and leave the totaling of all the penalties for tabulation. In the section with the large square, you can indicate where the team either overstepped the boundary or dropped a piece of equipment. As you keep track of the sequence, mark where a missed or bad command is. Now we come to the inspection sheet. It has 2 parts. Let's take a closer look. In the first part, you score the entrance and exit of the team just as you would judge a regulation drill phase. You are judging quality of technique. Make sure to give leeway for unusual requirements for the entrance and exit. Next, we will see an example of a special circumstance. My Air Force Junior ROTC drill team and I went to Arizona State University for a drill meet for the 4 years I was on the team. But in 1982 or 83, the inspection area was radically changed. No longer was it in a marked-off area in the large circular hallway around the basketball stadium. It was in a small room that really challenged the team. This change was made on purpose to see how each team would handle the cramped conditions. I was the commander of the team and was shown the room and told how to enter with a general explanation. I then had to explain that we were going to execute a column of files from the right with a column right. The 4th element entered first, and the other elements entered automatically, going into a column of 4s to the left, with me bringing up the rear. The 4th element had to be as close to the rear wall as possible to enable open ranks. After the inspection was finished, we had to execute a left face and leave with the element leaders at the rear of the element with another column of files, this time from the left. It was a big challenge, and we did well. Part 2 of the inspection sheet is where you begin judging the uniforms. Many times one judge is assigned to the commander, and then one judge per squad. At the top of the image you can see that you are to circle one of the squad numbers, or the CDR, for the commander. If you will judge the commander and then the first squad, ensure you write a C in the box with the 1, and then begin first squad with the box with the 2. For every gig assessed for uniform wear, the position of attention, or equipment, place marks in the appropriate space as shown. Total the gigs for each individual and leave the total gigs at the bottom for the tabulators. The tabulators fill in the scores and penalties for the commander and team and total the scores for each. Use your score sheet during the performance as a reference, and once the performance is finished, move to your table, look at the score sheet reverse, and read through the written standards. Once you zero in on a box, let's say box 3, now comes the process of looking at the score range that is divided into thirds and choosing which third to assign. Granted, most teams will fall into Box 3, but don't just throw your first team in dead center. That is disingenuous to all the teams and will result in at least some inaccuracies. To implement the thirds, think of the bottom third as the weaker section, the middle as intermediate, and the top third as stronger. With experience, you will be able to better understand how to score accurately. Write comments on the sheet as needed during and after the performance. Go to your tote sheet, we will look at that next, write the team's name in the appropriate score spaces, and then move back to the score sheet and write in your scores. The head judge, who holds any position other than timing and penalties, should gather all the score sheets and hand them to the runner. The runner then takes them to the tabulation area. Tote sheets are how the judges keep track of their scores. The tote sheet is filled in first, and then the judge goes back to the score sheet. You can see that the sheet has spaces for each score within each box. The gray lines are the center of the score range. Don't just automatically place your first team in the center of Box 3 and then go on from there. That isn't fair to any team. I filled in some school names as an example on the right. The image outlined in red is a snip from the score sheet. The snippet is repeated on the tote sheet. That's the image outlined in blue. You can see that I gave Green High School a score of 25 for the repertoire and a 21 for performance. The total would then be 46 out of 100. Based on the skill level explanation I read on the reverse of my score sheet, Green High School's performance had greater content, but the level of the performance did not meet the content. This means the team had variations in marching and body movement, but they did not practice enough to ensure the movements or positions were clear and sharp. Tolleson High School had much less repertoire, but their performance of the routine was much better, and they can handle more. This is how you let them know. Agua Fria High School was similar to Tolleson, but to a lesser extent. Holly High School performed well for the repertoire they had. For merged captions, the judge will have to keep two tote sheets going. Splitting one sheet is confusing. We covered who this training is for, the current system, and the background of the World Drill Association adjudication system, the drill meet, the 4 adjudication captions, the what and the how, judging exhibition drill, using descriptors, judging regulation drill, assigning a number to a visual performance, using the judge's tote sheets, and the tabulation process. Thank you very much for watching. I know this training is a bit long and intense, but honestly, it is well worth it to ensure we adequately judge our military drill competitions at the appropriate level and not just wing it.